everyone, and welcome to another edition of Healthcare Signals That Matter with me, Meghana Arun Pillai, powered by Intent.Health. This week, healthcare saw mega deals, renewed investor interest, regulatory shifts, stronger biotech markets, and some serious public health challenges. Here are the signals you need to know. Signal 1 of the week. Healthcare M&A is getting bigger. We saw several major healthcare deals this week. Curium is acquiring Lantheus for up to $8 billion, strengthening its position in radiopharmaceuticals. KKR is acquiring Integer Holdings for $5.7 billion, expanding its medical device portfolio. And Supernus and Indivior are combining to build a stronger neuroscience business. The signal: healthcare investors continue to see value in specialized platforms, particularly radiopharma, medical devices, and specialty medicines. For healthcare businesses, consolidation is becoming a major route to scale, capabilities, and market access. Signal 2 of the week. Investors are rotating back into healthcare. Healthcare stocks are getting renewed attention from Wall Street. Investors are increasingly moving toward healthcare as technology stocks face greater volatility. We also saw stronger quarterly performances from companies including Amgen, Gillette, Pfizer, Merck, Novo Nordisk, and Vertex. The signal: healthcare is increasingly being viewed as a defensive sector with growth opportunities, particularly where companies have strong drug portfolios, specialty businesses, or predictable demand. Signal 3 of the week. Obesity drugs are moving into their next phase. The obesity drug market continues to evolve. Eli Lilly announced early access to its next generation obesity drug for some patients, while Novo Nordisk reported stronger than expected quarterly results and raised its outlook. The signal: the competition is no longer simply about launching a GLP-1. It is increasingly about next generation therapies, access, differentiation, convenience, and long-term treatment. Signal 4 of the week. Diagnostics are becoming more accessible. Diagnostics had another important week. The FDA approved Freenome's blood test for colorectal cancer screening, while the FDA is preparing an advisory meeting on Grail's multi-cancer blood test. The signal: the healthcare system is moving toward diagnostics that can potentially make screening simpler, earlier, and more accessible. For healthcare marketers and technology companies, the opportunity is increasingly around how these tests move from approval to real-world adoption and patient behavior. Signal 5 of the week. AI is moving from experimentation to healthcare infrastructure. AI continues to become embedded across healthcare. At the same time, companies such as AGS Health are seeing strong demand for healthcare revenue cycle management, while healthcare software remains strategically important, reflected in Solventum's decision to spin off its healthcare software business. The signal: AI and healthcare technology are increasingly being treated as operational infrastructure, not just innovation projects. The winner will likely be the companies that can demonstrate measurable improvements in cost, efficiency, revenue, and patient outcomes. Signal 6 of the week. Pharma manufacturing is moving closer to home. Domestic manufacturing remains a major healthcare theme. Steris announced a $600 million manufacturing investment in North Carolina, while companies across biopharma continue expanding US production capabilities. At the same time, Scholar Rock revised an FDA filing after removing a Catalent manufacturing site. The signal: manufacturing strategy is increasingly tied to regulation, supply chain resilience, and geopolitical risk, not simply production cost. Signal 7 of the week. The FDA continues to shape the innovation pipeline. The FDA was central to several major developments this week. Takeda received approval for a new sleep disorder treatment. The agency is also reviewing Grail's multi-cancer blood test, while Scholar Rock and other companies continue navigating manufacturing and regulatory requirements. The signal for biotech companies, regulatory strategy is becoming just as important as clinical science. A promising therapy still needs the right evidence, manufacturing strategy, and regulatory pathway to reach patients. Signal 8 of the week. Public health outbreaks are becoming business risks. The cyclospora outbreak continued to expand. Michigan crossed 12,000 reported cases, and the CDC expanded the outbreak investigation in 15 states. And the impact is now moving beyond public health. Sweet Green cuts its forecast as concerns about the outbreak weighed on its business, while restaurants and food companies are dealing with changes in consumer behavior. The signal: public health events can quickly become commercial and brand risks. For health, food, and consumer businesses, outbreak preparedness is increasingly part of business continuity. Signal 9 of the week. Salmonella adds another food safety challenge. At the same time, the US is dealing with a multi-state salmonella outbreak linked to jalapeno peppers. The CDC reported 345 people sickened, while Chipotle removed the potentially linked peppers and said the outbreak was not included in its current annual targets. The signal: food safety incidents can create a chain reaction from supply chain disruption to consumer confidence and financial performance. Signal 10 of the week. Ebola response is scaling up. The Ebola response also intensified this week. Moderna began the first human trial of a Bundibugyo Ebola vaccine, while the US nearly doubled its financial commitment to the Ebola response. The US has also tightened travel rules for people returning from the affected regions. The signal: global health preparedness is moving back into focus, particularly around vaccines, outbreak response, and cross-border surveillance. Signal 11 of the week. Specialty pharmaceuticals continue to drive growth. Several pharma companies delivered strong numbers this week. Amgen sales rose 9%. Gillette grew sales 8%. Pfizer benefited from Eliquis demand. Merck continued to see strength from Keytruda. And Vertex raised its revenue forecast on strong cystic fibrosis drug performance. The signal: despite pressure across parts of the industry, innovative and specialty medicines remain powerful growth engines. The market is rewarding companies that can successfully replace mature products with newer growth drivers. Signal 12 of the week. But not every pharma story is positive. There was also a reminder that pharma growth is uneven. BioNTech lowered its 2020 sales outlook as COVID vaccine demand softened, while Moderna also reported weaker COVID vaccine demand. And ResMed shares fell despite beating quarterly profit expectations after its outlook for 2027 sales disappointed investors. The signal: markets are increasingly looking beyond quarterly performance. Future growth expectations matter just as much as today's numbers. Signal 13 of the week. Healthcare services face volume and reimbursement pressure. On the healthcare services side, Fresenius Medical Care beat profit expectations but saw its shares fall as US treatment volumes disappointed. Davita also flagged lower revenue per treatment while maintaining its annual outlook. The signal: healthcare providers can deliver strong financial results and still face pressure when patient volumes, reimbursement, or utilization trends move against them. Signal 14 of the week. Healthcare IPOs are showing signs of life. There's also renewed activity in the biotech capital markets. Latigo and Blossom Health launched US IPOs, while AGS Health filed updated papers for a potential $500 million India IPO. The signal: after a difficult period for biotech financing, investors appear to be selectively reopening the door, but the capital is likely to remain concentrated around companies with clear clinical, commercial, or technology stories. Signal 15 of the week. Healthcare policy remains a major business variable. And finally, policy continues to shape healthcare strategy. The Senate confirmed Susan Monrey-Schwartz as CDC director, while the Trump administration faces legal challenges over healthcare coverage policies. At the same time, companies continue navigating changing pricing and reimbursement environments. The signal for healthcare organizations, policy is no longer something to monitor from the sidelines. Regulation, reimbursement, and government policy are becoming care business variables. So, if we step back, 5 bigger signals stand out this week. 1. Healthcare consolidation is accelerating, particularly in specialty and high-value technologies. 2. Investors are rotating back toward healthcare as markets look for defensive growth. 3. AI, diagnostics, and digital health are moving from experimentation toward real-world adoption. 4th, public health events from cyclospora to salmonella and Ebola are increasingly creating economic and business consequences. And 5. Regulation, reimbursement, and manufacturing policy are becoming just as important to healthcare strategy as innovation itself. And those are the healthcare signals that matter this week. From billion-dollar deals and obesity drugs to AI diagnostics, outbreaks, and healthcare policy, the bigger story is clear. Healthcare is not operating in isolation anymore. Technology, capital, regulation, public health, and consumer behavior are increasingly shaping the same healthcare ecosystem. Thank you. And you're watching Healthcare Signals That Matter with me, Meghana Arun Pillai, powered by Intent.Health. And I'll see you next week with more of Healthcare Signals That Matter.